Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Overseers. This is Pro Elios and I'm joined once again by OneHP and Nightwing, my co-hosts. Say hi guys.
What- What's up?
Hello.
So we are super excited today because we are reviewing the Florida Mayhem. And not much has changed about this roster from the previous season. We still have a few faces, but the sort of pop-off core has been retained. So, how we are going to do this is discuss the tank line first, then the DPS, the supports, and then the coaching stuff. And then we'll just give our general thoughts on where we think the team lies before, without doing an actual power rankings. Uh, but yeah, I think we should get started. Are you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So the tank line for the Florida Mayhem for 2021 is OG on main tank and Gargoyle on off tank. And I'm gonna let 1HP take the lead on OG because he has a few interesting points to share with us. So go on.
Yeah, I think first of all going into it, they had to of course trade Fate and then of course pick up at the same time make a pickup for OG, which is quite apples and oranges. If you first think about it, Fate is highly versatile. I think he's more versatile in terms of play style. But at the same time, I also very highly rate OG. Well, at least higher than the average person would. Um, I think even on a Dallas side, that was never really getting anywhere. He had matches where even the one or two maps they just win somehow was down to just like OG himself. And I think over time, even though gladiators didn't like achieve anything spectacular with picking him up, I still believe that he has learned quite a bit in terms of getting his other tanks on par with his Winston play. And at this point, my only problem, or rather my only question, would be that I just don't know how good he can be on his day on ball, because there's just some really good Hammond players in the league right now. And I could have seen Fate sort of delve more into that role, because he's always been the sort of person to pick up more things. Uh, if that gets covered, then Florida for me don't have to worry about the main tank department. I don't see what the realistic expectation would be this season, but I would say he's slightly over, like, I wouldn't say above average. I wouldn't say a top tank. I just say sort of fits in between the two sorts of categories for me, or let's say two sort of hierarchies of power. So at the end of the day, OG is a very good pickup, and it shows focus from the team because they might want to switch up their playstyle a bit. But I think we'll discuss that more as we move on to Checkmate.
All right, I think I'll let Nightwing go next, and then I can speak my points as well.
First of all, let me say how absolutely disappointed I am that they have not taken uh, rookie player sideshow for the season 4 of Overwatch League.
Oh yeah, I was devastated when I heard about that.
Yeah, they signed him at a very opportune time in season 3, and he really changed the playstyle of the team. I think it's a real shame that we won't be seeing sideshow on the Mayhem this year. That said, OG is there. I guess he can play, but I would really love to see sideshow there instead. Anyway, um, I think OG is uh, he's always showed these like sparks of potential uh, that he could really be one of the greats, and he is individually talented. Um, on the monkey, somewhat on the Rhine. His ball is not bad either, but it's just that he hasn't actually been able to deliver. Now you might just think that he's kind of cursed because he's been on teams that again hype you up but don't deliver, like Dallas and Gladiators, where you keep expecting great things but great things don't happen. But I feel like you can't just attribute that to being a team curse. I think OG kind of his own situation is kind of like that. I think Fate was someone that promoted more versatile kind of play styles, and I'm a bit worried. that OG is going to be probably the biggest letdown factor compared to last season for Florida, honestly. I don't really agree with OneHP because there's a lot of good main tanks in the league now, especially in the NA region. I think Florida will have to fight tooth and nail even for that to get that same around third place spot in NA that they were relatively easily getting in season 3 because there's top tanks like Smurf and Mag uh, to compete with. So I don't know. I'm not too hot on OG. I think Fate was a much better fit for the team, but he's gone over to Shanghai, so I guess OG will have to do. I'm not expecting too great things from him, but he's obviously probably going to be league average.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Nightwing on this one. I do believe OG is individually skilled. He has shown naturally prowess on Winston. Like I think Nightwing pretty much covered those points about his hero pool, but he's had consistency issues for the entire duration for which he's played in the Overwatch League.
He's
And
been consistently inconsistent.
yeah, exactly. So I think it's all like the teams he was on obviously had something to do with it, but you can't attribute the whole of the issue to the team, right? Because we've seen him also like not play that well on multiple occasions, and usually he's known as an emotional player, and that tends to affect his performance in game as well. So I'm not sure if he's the most reliable pickup at this point because you had so many other tank options you could have gone for, and they could have picked up some rookies from contenders even. I think OG is a really odd pickup to go for right now when you have many other options, and I honestly am not on I'm not high on him either. So it might be a stretch to say this, but like if he plays even remotely poorly, I think the Mayhem are gonna face like much more trouble than they've ever faced in the past year or so. So it's a make or break situation because Florida doesn't even have a backup main tank, right? So and I'm not sure putting their flex DPS on main tank like Houston did is going to work. So that's the like those are my points on OG essentially. If you guys have got anything to add, let's discuss those points first. Otherwise, we can move on to Gargoyle.
I think there's just this slight thing I think when comparing Fate with OG. I just one of the reasons I don't think this is an entirely terrible pickup is because I didn't see Fate standing out either. Even though he's like a top tier tank, he has always been like he's played at the highest level and he has done it for quite a while. But at the same time, if OG can sort of find form, find consistency, uh, once again down to coaching, once again down to sort of developing a playstyle for the entire team as opposed to one person, I think it could still work out for them. I wouldn't say it's a bad or a good pickup. It's just that seeing the pickups other teams have made, like for example, Nudge Nudge NYXL, this is still, I would say, makes me hopeful at least of them. Like I think one thing I do agree with, they'll struggle this season to keep the spot they finished at, but that's down to other teams just making these rosters that are just incomprehensible, by standards of like 2 3 years ago. So not judging by that logic and just taking him for what he's made out of, I think OG can do well. It's just once again the trouble with his consistency, and I hope finally on a roster which is enabling him to perform at a high level, he can sort of find his footing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's one way to look at it for sure. And let's see. I too wish him the best of luck, honestly, because it's hard to see someone struggle so much, even emotionally, and then have that transfer into their gameplay. So I really hope he's able to pull himself together and put up some really good performances and like surprise the naysayers like me, right? and he suddenly got the backup to do it. Because I mean, Gargoyle has been a stellar off tank since the 2020 season began. He's proven to be super talented and versatile. Played an insane Sigma, Diva, Zarya, and we already know that his Hog is great from the 2019 season. And I think he's finally got a competent lineup to play alongside, because the season 2 Florida Mayhem was pretty bad. They were really bad, and even his contenders teams weren't so good. So I think, and I'm gonna say this for like multiple players coming into this, but I feel like a lot of the players from the teams in the top tiers, right? Um, I think we are overrating them all a little bit as individual players, and the reason being that the team structure overall sort of elevates the players' positions in our minds, because I would bet you any day that maybe half of these players, if they are put on other teams, they will not perform as well, because just the structure they've got, and some of these coaches like Kuki especially, they've got such a really a very good support structure in place to help these guys be the best they can possibly be. So I think they've done a great job at enabling Gargoyle to be the best he can be, and he's up for like the talk of one of the best off tanks in season 4 of the Overwatch League once again. So yeah, I'm really excited to see him, and I hope he can work well with OG and pop off once again. You guys can go ahead.
I think from the way I've seen Gargoyle, he's been one of the carries on the Mayhem last year. I mean, there's always the elephant in the room, Yaki, but we I think Yaki gets a little more credit than he deserves sometimes. So at the same time, I'll just touch up on what makes Gargoyle great, and it's for me that's been his ability to be sort of highly dependable, and I haven't seen him sort of make the mistakes that sort of the your average or low tier uh Overwatch League of Tank would. But that also comes down to, now I don't know how much of this was fate, because fate's always been for me the kind of main tank who wouldn't exactly like just make the biggest of plays, but at the same time he's an enabler. And to that extent, Gargoyle was so good with him, and like you said, Proelius, I just hope that he gels well with OG. Even like, I pray it's of a higher degree than it was last year, because Gargoyle was like quite good. But then there are absolute monsters, and as in when we compare it to other teams, there's always going to be someone better. I don't think Florida as a team has anyone on any role that's kind of let's say a top 3 in the league, at least for me, and that does include Gargoyle, sadly, too. So I hope he can only get better from here, because he is probably one of the only 2 or 3 people I have that kind of hope for. And very, very promising indeed. And last year he just kind of smashed it, really. I don't have a single problem, because small mistakes happen. And like you said, we do sort of overrate people, but at the same time, overrating them based around team dependency does make sense, because it is a way more team based game than the other FPSs in the genre. So
Yep.
coming back to my original point, I do think that enablers are a thing in Overwatch, and sometimes they go unnoticed. So what we want to see right now is for OG to link up very well with Gargoyle. I don't think the DPS or support lines will, support line didn't really change, did it? And DPS line has only had one addition, so that won't ever be a problem. And those weren't subpar. They weren't like league best, but those weren't subpar areas. So the tank line has to kind of just amp it up a little bit if they want to even keep their position at this rate. So I just our most said quote probably here is wishing him the best, and that goes for Gargoyle as well, because I can only see him improve, but that does depend on his main tank, and the pickup for main tank has been like I said before, an interesting one. It's not necessarily good or bad.
Nightwing.
I think Gargoyle was a standout player alongside Yaki in season 3. he's probably he's obviously like individually talented, and but he's probably gonna have to work hard to kind of sync up with OG. I think that comes largely down to the kind of practice they get, the kind of coaching they receive. I think Kuki runs a heavy hand on the coaching department, so maybe they can get OG and Gargoyle to work together well as a tank duo unit. Um, I think he's one of the better off tanks in the league. Definitely not perhaps top one, top two, but he's definitely up there. Um, I think Gargoyle will continue to kind of stand out on Florida. Especially, he's probably going to stand out more as an individual player, considering that I'm not expecting as much from OGE. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one similarity that you'll find between both these tank players is that they've got great mechanical skill, and some of the best moments come from individual plays rather than team play. So that could be one way to go about it, right? You just rely on your tanks to individually pop off, but I think looking at the competition this season, that's not going to be enough. So they really need the tank line to gel together in order to, like, be competent enough to, let's say, be a playoff tank based tank line. Like this needs to be like a top 4, top 5 tank line if they want to push through deep in the final playoffs. But I don't think it'll happen if OG plays as inconsistently as he's known to play. But I'm fairly confident Gargoyle will do a good job regardless. Uh, anyway, on that note, should we move on to the DPS line?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So the DPS line this year consists of BQB and Yaki, who have been carried forward from the 2020 season, and there's also a new flex DPS player in Checkmate. So I think let's start off talking about the retained players, and that's BQB and Yaki. And actually, I want to touch upon BQB first because I think he's another one of those players that people overrate slightly. Even though he is like pretty consistent, he's pretty good. He plays all the different hit scans. He's also like the rare times he's played heroes like maybe Reaper, Hanzo. He's done a good job on those as well. But I find people overrate him a little bit individually. I think it's once again the structure that he's been put in that's enabling him to have those pop off moments and play so well. Like if you saw him back in the 2019 season, he wasn't doing that great of a job. That's because his team wasn't doing that good of a job enabling him and buying him space, right? So now that he has these resources from star players like Gargoyle and Gangnamjin, uh, like this is where he can truly shine, and I think he can evolve into a really good player if he continues getting this kind of support. But I think like individually, I think everybody should sort of uh, they shouldn't think of him as some like god tier aimer. It's just that he's consistent and he knows how to make the right plays because his team enables him to do so. But yeah, I mean he's definitely had some really good moments and contested some of the top hit scans. So I'm really hopeful and optimistic about him doing well again this season. So yeah, I'll let you guys touch in on that.
Yeah, I'm not sort of this is a situation where I wouldn't say someone's too high up or too low up in my opinion, and I don't know really because Yaki is top tier, or rather almost top tier for me, but BQB here kind of begs the question of for me it would have been one department they could have gone above and beyond for. I'm not saying he's bad. He is definitely a good player. At least mechanical skill wise, he's really good. And initially, I think the thing that used to impress me about it was his Sombra play was quite dependable. But his McCree and Widow are serviceable at best. I don't see him going toe to toe with the big guns in the league, and I think that's me summed up on BQB really, because there's not much to say, and we've seen him play, and we've seen him play enough, and we know how good he gels with Yaki, and it's not to the extent that you would think that they'll carry every game, or I see Yaki being the actual threat here, and BQB only really popping off when Yaki's kind of having three people try to encapsulate him. Sorry, and uh, that's my entire issue here. That while they did go for a checkmate, in sort of a new pickup, when we'll just throw around terms like unproven when we get to him, but I don't think not having a backup for BQB or not having an alternative will be that good of an option in this season when people are not even satisfied with like 4 DPS at times. So yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I think Yaki and BQB did a great job last year during the whole COVID thing, where like they did not really make you feel like Florida's DPS were the issue. They only had two DPS players, nobody to sub out, and yet you wouldn't really say that the DPS were almost ever an issue. It's just like apart from like one-off chances where it would be like a widow versus widow where BQB would have to play against Hans, and then he would get dominated by Hans. But apart from those situations, you like I thought BQB was quite serviceable and quite decent the entire time.
Yep.
He never really made you feel like he was really lacking. It's just that there were some insanely talented players sometimes on the other team. I think it's good that they've kept him. He works well with the roster. He allows uh, kind of Yaki to be the pop-up hero. He kind of stays a bit more low resource, providing backup. Um, I think BQB is definitely a good player, and I want to see him kind of succeed this season as well. You mentioned how he did terribly in 2019. Um, you're talking about a team that was literally 20th in the regular standings, literally the last team in the 2019 season.
Yeah.
So it's hard to look very great at maybe that lower level as well.
Oh no, that
Um,
was my point. That he couldn't play well. Sorry, he couldn't play well because his team was so bad. Like he didn't get enough space. He wasn't enabled enough by his supports. But now that he has got a structure, he can actually play to a decent level rather than just lose every single team fight his team runs into. So yeah, that was my
yeah,
point.
yeah. So I think BQB is gonna. Well, he's not gonna be competing for the very top maybe this season. He's gonna be solid at least. I'm not. I don't have much doubts about him. I think his kind of level of play is quite like settled. I'm not expecting huge upshifts or downshifts from him, honestly.
Yeah, makes
Yeah, I
sense.
think that is very well put. I think that's very fair of like a very 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 fair assessment of the whole situation, because he will help sort of Yaki stay in his element. And yeah, like I said, the only small pet peeve I'd have is I don't know, are they really trying to go for the title? Probably not, but I just always see teams sort of as orgs who would at least want to do better. And I think BQB doesn't have um much left to show in terms of, he's super consistent. He's probably, still slightly above even like the middle pack for me. He's not quite the top, but he's not quite middle of the pack in terms of his scans. But is that what Florida needs? Because the other person's Yaki here, and I've rated him really really highly at certain points in last season. I mean, once again, we do attribute a lot of their success to Yaki, which is unfair. But I just want it to be a scenario for them where they can sort of have the DPS line utilized to its highest potential, and I hope sort of maybe he can even gel better with the new flex coming in. So yeah, well, let's just see how he does. And I do agree with Nightwing on the fact that we can't really see him getting better or worse. Which for better or worse is just something for us to stick by now.
I mean, we've mentioned Yaki so far a lot by this point, so I think you guys can start us off on the points you have to say about him. So yeah, whoever wants to start off can go on.
Yeah, I think Yaki, I'll just continue my rant. Yaki has
Yeah.
quite high highs, I would say. The lows were very rare, and they were very infrequent. So I'm not really bothered about, like, this is one of the flex pickups that have never really bothered me about anything. I would be a little concerned when it gets to sort of specialty picks, like if someone had to play the Doomfist. I don't take him too hotly on any of those, but the most serviceable flexes, and especially his Tracer, being able to play the Tracer at a high level last season was only something a few handful of players could manage. So I really highly rate him. There's not much to say about him. We've seen enough, and I think, of course, he was a great pickup when he came in, and he proved himself to be like quite. I mean, serviceable would be a bad thing to say. He's been at, like, if there was a bracket of players who are just outside or sort of have the potential to barge into the top DPS, then he would be one of them for me. I think he's as good a player as people pick him out to be. Sometimes overrated, not in his individual capacity, but when people talk about Florida's success or some of the big upsets they pulled off last season, I think that's when people start to overrate him, or rather his contributions. Because, like we said, Gargoyle was also part, Gangnamjin was also part. We didn't really know what the internals of the team were. But as far as we're judging him as an individual, which would only be fair, then I don't think this is one player I'd have any complaints with.
Nightwing, you can pitch in on that.
All right. I think Yaki. I mean, he was obviously an MVP contender last year. Uh, Obviously got edged out by a few other. Wait, was it MVP or was? Yeah, it was MVP, right?
I think Rookie
Um,
of the Year.
I think
I
Rookie of the Year too, yeah.
I think he was in
I
the
mean,
vote for both.
could have
I'm
been
not sure.
both. Yeah, some players
But
were in
yeah,
talk for both, like XG,
Yeah,
for example.
yeah. So either way, he was a really good player last year. Um, his his combo with BQB spamming Dressirash, kind of like the Valiant did, is basically what they went with most of last season. And his tracer play was exceptional during that. During the brief Genji meta during the summer showdown, they performed well. And he even played Genji a bit, I think, in the May melee. Even though at that time Genji was maybe not the focus of all the teams that at the time. Yeah, he's an exceptional player, I think. Uh, Only a bit below, I think, interest of player play than literally just striker, who is literally the best tracer in the world. So yeah, I think Yaki and BKB have most of the bases covered in terms of the DPS that needs to be played. They've added Checkmate for bolstering the roster, but I would still expect to see Yaki and BQB uh, kind of in play most of the time, unless there's some weird double flex DPS kind of thing going on.
Okay, yeah. So Yaki for me, I rate Yaki incredibly highly. I think he's like a god tier of Lex DPS. He has been a force to be reckoned with ever since his runaway days, I think. His tracer obviously rated very highly and very rightfully so, and but I don't think his echo gets talked about enough because I mean he didn't play it that much because his team preferred putting him on tracer and letting him pop off a lot more on that role. But overall, a very reliable player and a really mechanically talented player. So I am expecting great things from Yaki once again this season, and yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have to say about him. Really, BQB Yaki, uh, almost sort of like an iconic pair at this point for the Florida Mayhem's fans. Uh, and I think adding Checkmate as a third DPS is a move I don't fully understand. So Checkmate, I'll just start off since I've mentioned him anyway. So he's a flex DPS player coming in from the Contenders Korea team called OZE Gaming. I don't know if it's Oz, I'm just calling it OZE right now. Um, I haven't seen, like, I haven't studied his play in depth, or, I don't have any, like, super detailed insights about him. I just think they've brought him in for a rainy day. Like, he didn't even play for OZ Gaming in their latest, like, Contenders tournament. So, I'm really not sure how he fits into the team. He's probably going to be an average player, because I'm generally optimistic about players whom we don't have much footage of, or like people haven't rated them very highly or low, because that just means that they've done something to stand out in the tryouts. And I think that's where, like, it might just be an average pickup, and he can be probably subbed in for Yaki if, like, he has a cold or something. So
No,
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
go ahead.
it's I think apparent that he would probably be running a few specialist roles for the team. I think they'll let Yaki focus on his absolute positives as a flex, which are quite a few at that. So, and the rest of them he'll probably come in for, be subbed in as, the flex who just comes in for those niche picks. But other than that, like you said, probably had amazing tryouts. I mean, I think he's from Zenith. I don't know where he's
OZ
from. No,
Gaming.
he's from OZ. Yeah, no. So he's from OZ. So who else was from OZ? Who came to Friday? I think Friday was picked up, wasn't he? From OZ. Yeah, by NYXL. And I think it's just coming down to the fact that someone must have seen something in one of the roles he's taken up as a flex. And I think Florida, of all teams, knows what kind of sort of their shortcomings would be, because they had a phenomenal season in terms of DPS play. So I'm just going to sort of put my faith into them and say that I don't expect like extraordinary things. I mean, sure, if he does start popping off out of nowhere, credit to him. But I think this is going to hopefully be at least another BQB scenario where we have someone super consistent who's fairly above average and just below sort of the top tier of people in his own role. And I think that is good enough for Florida to even want to maintain their current position that they ended with. DPS won't really ever be an issue for them, speaking of my own opinion. But yeah, I'll just let Nightwing finish this one off.
I didn't watch much of OZ Gaming per se, but it's interesting that a lot of the three of their players have been picked up by different teams. There's Cute going to the Gladiators. There's obviously Checkmate going to Florida, and then there's Friday going to NYXL. So either they must have been really impressed with them in trims or tryouts or something like that, because this roster seems to be a popular pick for our teams right now. Checkmate, I did watch some of him during the Valiant Winter Ball. Unfortunately, Florida instantly got knocked out because they came last. So
Yikes.
the team did not look very impressive, and Checkmate's Echo, which is what he was mostly playing, was not very exceptional compared to the other players on the other team. I don't even remember. They played either against. Oh yeah, they played against Gladiators, against Mirrors, Echo most of the time. Sometimes they swap to Kelster's Echo. Obviously, those are some exceptional players on Echo, but that does not bode very well for Checkmate. I guess he's not going to be at the very top, and that's all I can really tell you. I would probably have to see him play more matches instead of getting knocked out in round one to really give you a proper assessment. But against the top, he looked quite a bit weaker on the Echo. That is maybe the role that they want to give him, though, and let Yaki focus on the Tracer, or maybe Genji Farah. I don't know.
Alright, so yeah, no, in general, not a very optimistic scenario with respect to Checkmate for the Mayhem, but again, as we usually say, wish him all the best. And I think with all our points about the DPS covered, we can move on to the supports.
Yeah.
Uh, so let's speak about Slime and Gangnamjin. This is a support pair I'm super excited about. I think these guys are like some of the like two of the most talented supports, at least in the NA region. Like Slime, obviously coming in from the Soul Dynasty and also the Runaway edition of the Vancouver Titans, and he's just been a top tier main support for the past few years, and I don't have much to say about him. I think his work precedes him, and like his reputation precedes him. He's just cracked on Lucio. He's good on Mercy. His break is all right. I think definitely serviceable. So I really don't have much to say about him. And even with the, like when you talk about Gangnam Jin, right? He's just a great flex support. His Ana was really solid. His Zen's good. He's one of the few players I would say is quite good on Moira. When I spec him in the replay view, I just found that he manages resources a lot better as Moira and uses cooldowns. He was a bit more disciplined with things like the Fade and his orbs, and overall just really consistent. So I'm super optimistic and excited about this support line, and I'm interested to see what you guys think about this as well, because these are supports from two different editions of the Runaway, essentially now slotted into the Florida Mayhem. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, it's very exciting, like you said. I'll just steal that quote from you. Very exciting. And what impresses me the most is how well rounded it is. It's been quite a while since we discussed a support line that was just at least as good as this. I don't recall it being at least in the last two reviews, but Slime, first of all, let's just touch upon Slime because Gangnamjin has been there the last season. Slime's just championship caliber. I can't, sing any less praises for him than I would for any of the other top sort of pro Lucios in the team, and he's got every other main support covered to quite a high degree as well. And truth be told, he even has a good Ana when it comes to it. So contenders winning with Runaway. Then he's been in two playoffs, I think one grand finals, just the one last year, from what I
Been in
remember.
three
But
playoffs.
no, I'm just talking about grand finals in general. It
Okay.
was the last one only, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
playoffs have been, yeah, I think three. Yeah, you're right. So he's been a very, very good main support, and I think that is a role, like you said in one of our earlier previews, that is so overlooked because when, like for example, NYXL picked Friday or someone stuck with someone, and we're just thinking, listen, why don't they, give a damn about their one of the most consistency requiring roles, which is main support, because that person has to literally pull their hair out and keep the team sort of well stocked up. So this is a player who can make plays and at the same time be more than serviceable in terms of healing output. So I'm very happy they have Slime. And this is sort of one thing that'll take them to a level, at least in terms of having support line that lets them compete with the best of teams. Because Gangnam Jin, on the other hand, has, like you said, a very good Ana. His BAP is also very well rounded. The Zen I have, absolutely no doubts about as well. So Gangnam Jin, I'm not going to speak much about because we already have sort of touched up on him when we were talking about people like Gargoyle and Yaki. So the main sort of cherry on the top for me in the support line has been the addition of Slime. They couldn't have, for me, made a better pickup to sort of improve this. And I just hope that is an enabling factor for someone like Gangnam Jin to sort of get to a slightly higher level, I'd say, where someone like Shu will be for me, or someone like one of the absolute gods like Alarm would be for me. I don't know if he can sort of get to the absolute pinnacle, but Gangnam has always been someone who's impressed me a lot on that roster. So this is like I'm just happy to finally talk about a support line that makes me happy. So it's just a very well-rounded sort of ideal support line for them, like I previously mentioned. And I think this is one thing we will all agree upon when we say that this is by far their probably going to be their most consistent role. Even like I know their DPS can be phenomenal on their day, but I don't see them sort of being more consistent than the support line.
Nightwing?
I think it's great that Slime will actually see play. Unlike on Soul, where he would come out like peak slightly and then get like absorbed into the Toby vortex of death, and then Toby would just swallow him and play instead. That keeps happening on Soul whenever they try to remove Toby. Um, so it's good that Slime is actually going to see play. He obviously played exceptionally well in season 2 with the Vancouver Titans, with the runaway stuff. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited for him to show what he's got because he really did not in the past season. Obviously, got kicked from Vancouver because of the OGS issues, and then did not see much playtime with Soul either. So I want to see a new and invigorated Slime this season. And yeah, for Gangnamjin, I think he's great. He's up, maybe not top 1 or 2, but he's definitely up there with one of the better flex supports. And the thing is, Slime can also play flex supports to a serviceable degree. So they're even with just 2 supports, I think they're decently covered for some kind of double flex support meta. Honestly, I think Gangnamjin has good mechanics, good and he is able to work within the team system very well. So I agree with OneHP that this is probably the most consistent part of the roster for the Florida Mayhem, and I'm excited to see them do well.
Alright. And I think with that we can move on and speak about the coaching stuff a little bit. Are you guys okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
So the only coach I really want to talk about is the main man, right? Kuki, and he's just proven to be really solid, especially in the past year. He after he left the Valiant, I think he was just determined to be smart enough to be benched by Coach Moon. So he just like left and went to Runaway, coached them for a bit, then became the head coach of the Mayhem, brought Yaki and Gangnamjin with him, and he made the team like really competent in most metas last year. So his pickup was like overall really influential in helping the Mayhem succeed. I think he's definitely driving this team in the right direction overall. I'm not too sure about his scouting. I don't know if he was the one who scouted OGE and Checkmate, but I mean, I'm still optimistic about him as a coach. I think he might have some specific plans to integrate them into their core roster. If he's, really, if he's been the one to influence all of these pickups. So yeah, those are my points about Cookie, and you guys can add any of yours.
And it's just like a wise man once said, "Don't fix what ain't broke." So we're probably just gonna see, like, we know exactly what to expect here going off last season, and Cookie, like you said, hopefully made the right pickup choices. We wouldn't like. I mean, this is probably the first time he's realistically gotten to sort of at least do a very sort of like a unidimensional rebuild in terms of picking some core players, because let's say main support and main tank are very important, and they could in like according to me at least in effect change how the entire team plays. So hopefully he's had a vision of what he sees making the team more efficient and better. I think efficiency is something this team could seriously work on, because that was the only thing for me separating them from the absolute top teams last season. And I don't doubt his ability at all. He's had quite the CV going forward. So yeah, I mean, this season, realistically speaking, I think what would be a good scenario would be if they just managed to keep their original position from last season when like Kuki was in his element, and I think that should be enough. I'd consider that like half success, or actual success would be top three, but that's saying a bit much, really.
Nightwing? Yeah.
I think that Kuki is definitely one of the better and probably slightly underrated coaches in the league.
Yep.
He's commanding a lot of respect with his players. He has a lot of experience with the game. Uh, as a player himself, I think he can really provide a good perspective both on the overall game as well as uh, individual improvement. I think he's probably going to be the biggest factor that kind of makes or breaks the kind of synergy OG has with the rest of the team as a main tank. I think he commands a lot of respect. I think he's going to be able to get the players under control, even though OG is kind of an emotional player, and make the team kind of work under him. I think you mentioned the scouting. I think that's probably done by uh, Albert Yeh, Dicko Mode, as he is known on the ranked ladder.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, yeah.
yeah, he's effectively the GM, but officially the VP of esports, something. Um, yeah, I think Florida has a really good staff. Honestly, I think Cookie's really holding the reins as the coach. They have Albert providing the kind of scouting, most likely, and also providing well, he's providing advertisement, I guess, by going on a vast stream every all match, and they've got great translators like Swingchip that can really help the players adjust to the North American kind of region, because it's unlikely that these players are going to be without the kind of support from the staff. It's hard to be a Korean player in NA, just like it's hard to be an NA player in Korea. So I think Florida has a really good staff system that they've set up, and I think that's really what sets them up for success.
And just to round things off, where do we think this team stands now, roughly, in terms of the other teams in the league? Because, like, as of last season, they were like one or two additions away from being a championship roster, I feel. So, I'm not too sure they are headed in the right direction because of, well, the volatility of OG and the unpredictability of Checkmate's skill. So I really don't know because their support line is really good. The DPS line will I think will work well overall. The tank line like will be made or broken by OG. So once again I think really hard to place this team for me personally, but I don't think they're going to be a championship contender in any way. And do you guys agree with that or do you have any different takes?
No, not a championship contender. That would have required for them to pick an absolute juggernaut of a main tank, let's say Sado or someone like that, or Manos. Anyone who's just absolute top tier, someone with insane potential like Mag, or just sort of someone like we can't just OG's like I probably rate him higher than both of you, but even I don't see it panning out to that extent unless Cookie's just this god of a player management sort of aspect. So I don't know. Definitely not the top. Best case scenario, maintaining their position, but I wouldn't say that I see them falling much lower than like sixth, seventh position either, because they are. Let's say the pickups are very well consistent, and a good support line always means that you're like the rest of the players are definitely going to play to their absolute fucking best. So let's just see how it goes for them. I certainly hope that they do better than they did last season, even, but that's going to be a very, very hard thing to accomplish for them. Yeah, that's it.
I think last year you would have probably said in season 3 that Shock and Philly are probably number 1 and 2 in NA, and then in third there's probably contention between Florida, Paris, and sometimes Valiant when they do well with the Tracer Ash thing. This year, I think Florida has a lot of competition, and it's going to be hard for them to even try for that third place. You look at the teams in NA this time that can really stand up to them and probably exceed them. There's Shock, there's Gladiators, there's Justice, there's Dallas even. Um, Good players like Hisu and have transferred over to Toronto. I am not sure what they're doing over at Toronto, but it's a bit scary. Um, if you looked at the recent what was it called? Uh, there was this tournament where Gladiators played against London. I forgot what it
The
was, but I
Steel
watched.
series. The Steel
Oh yeah,
series.
the Steel Series match. If you
Yeah.
watched between London and Gladiators, they brought them to a 3-2 with Gladiators eventually winning. But I think London, even though people are kind of underrating them, I think London also has like possible contention with Florida. So I think it's going to be hard for them to even maintain their best case scenario, which is to kind of maintain their place from last season. I think Florida's probably going to dip down a bit compared to last season, unless they have some seriously good teamwork and synergy established through their staff. One thing is definitely there is that I think Florida does have one of the better systems in terms of staff, in terms of player mental health, in terms of just the overall lifestyle of players. I think it's helped through that. The mental, I think, is one of the most underrated parts of esports. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's something that Florida have kind of figured out at least, and that may be to their advantage. But if you're looking at pure on paper strength, player versus player, blow versus blow, I think Florida's going to have a rough time uh, trying to maintain their place. That said, middle of the pack in Overwatch League is still an achievement, honestly, and I definitely don't see them dropping down to the old Florida Mayhem of season 1 and 2. So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
so yeah, Florida fans, if that is the ground on which you base your expectations, you'll probably be satisfied nevertheless. Just don't base it off of being third last year and wanting to be better this year.
Yep. Yep. Alright, I think we pretty much have gone over all of the points we wanted to discuss. Do you guys have anything more to add?
No, I think I'm good.
I just want to see Checkmate do better. I think that there's probably a reason why they've picked up players from OZ. I think I'm still a bit fuzzy on pickups like Friday for NYXL and Checkmate to Florida, but these players must have really impressed in trials to kind of have been picked up from the same roster. So maybe there's something that the coaches have seen in the trialing that we've kind of missed. And if that's there, then I welcome that. I think new talent, rookie talent coming into the league is always a good thing. It's good for creating franchise players. And yeah, I like seeing good Overwatch. That's basically it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's hope that sooner rather than later we'll be able to solve the mysteries of OG and OZ. So on that note, I think let's round up this episode. And Nightwing, I think you've got a special something on your Discord tag today. Would you like to round us off tonight?
Uh, yeah, I mean, make sure to subscribe if you like hearing us make bad puns like Projas just made. Or if you would like to hear armchair analysts who honestly not that good at the game um, talk about players that are good at the game. So
Like Sideshow.
yeah, I am going to ignore that. If you would like to hear my thoughts on Sideshow, please uh, drag your YouTube progress bar to the beginning of the episode. Um, Yeah, thank you and have a good day. Question mark?
Yep, and just a heads up, our next episode will be about the Chengdu Hunters. So make sure you have your notifications turned on for that episode. And yep, I think we can round it off here. See you later, guys. Bye bye.